Hello, everybody. We are the Rebel Collective. Just two rebels that have been deplatformed, deleted, shadow banned, persecuted, and muzzled. And we're going to be leading the other rebels and pioneers in their fields and give them a voice that can't be silenced because we are the resistance. I'm here with Drago Reid. We have a really wonderful guest. I can't wait to get to know her. Her name is Suzanne Spooner. And Drago's going to tell you a bit about her.
All right, everybody. Meet Suzanne Spooner, a remarkable level 3 QHHT quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner from Des Moines, Iowa, and a visionary teacher who seamlessly blends her passion for world travel with her profound spiritual work. With an insatiable wanderlust and a heart for exploration, Susan has embarked on an awe-inspiring journeys to Egypt and beyond, leaving an indelible mark on the lives of those encounters. As a seasoned QHHT practitioner, Suzanne has honed her skills in guiding individuals through transformative healing journeys. With her gentle presence and intuitive vision, she empowers her clients to delve deep in the subconscious minds, unlocking hidden truths and facilitating profound healing experiences. But Suzanne's quest for knowledge and connection extends beyond the confines of a traditional healing space. She truly understands that the world is a tapestry of diverse cultures, histories, and landscapes, each holding its own vision to be unraveled. Thus, she has made it her mission to bring the magic of QHHT to fascinating destinations all across the globe. When not conducting healing sessions, Susan can be found leading transformative workshops and leading QHHT in some of the most breathtaking locations imaginable. From ancient temples in Egypt to serene retreats in exotic lands, she creates an immersive learning experience that intertwines spirituality and adventure. Her unique approach to teaching QHHT in these enchanting settings creates an unparalleled connection between the inner self and the outer world. Participants find themselves enveloped within the energy of sacred sites and tapped into the collective wisdom that echoes throughout the ages. Suzanne's infectious enthusiasm for exploration and her compassionate approach to healing have earned her a dedicated following of spiritual seekers and adventure enthusiasts alike. Her teachings inspire individuals to embrace their true potential, unearthing the innate gifts and purpose, and empowering them to lead more fulfilling lives. Through her globetrotting, a word she loves to use, with her tours and teachings, Suzanne serves as a bridge between cultures, fostering unity and understanding among people from all walks of life. Her mission is not only to heal individual souls, but also contribute to the collective awakening of humanity. As Suzanne continues to wander the world, spreading the light of QHHT and touching hearts whenever she goes, her legacy grows, leaving an enduring impact on the lives she touches and the places she explores. For those very fortunate souls enough to come cross paths with her and this intrepid healer and wanderer, the journey becomes a transformative odyssey, guiding them towards self-discovery, healing, and a profound connection to the marvels of our shared human experience. Welcome to the show, Suzanne.
Gosh, thanks, Drago. That was really sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I've been following you for a really long time. Ever since I got into QHHT, I've been following you from behind the scenes, always listening to your work and watching your videos.
Thank you. It's a lot of mind-bending information to put out, and I love that my clients will allow me to put their sessions out so others can learn from them who may have similar issues or challenges in their life. It may give them a way of looking at it a little bit differently or more helpfully to enhance their own life a little bit.
So what's your favorite thing about QHHT?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. Oh my gosh, there's so much. I think, the first thing that pops into mind, so I'll go with that, is when a client comes in for a session, there's just, life is hard. Human life is hard. And they come in with a lot of, I don't get it. And I'm a really good person. I really try hard, but then this happens, or, my family was like this when I was growing up. It was so hard. And they want some understanding on a deeper level than what their analytical left brain has been able to come up with. And, by the end of the session, one of the most beautiful things that I witness is as I count them up at the end and they open their eyes up. There's just this look of awe and, oh my gosh, I get it. And I never thought about it that way. And that makes complete sense now. And now I know what I need to do to stay on my path, or, to make my life better. So that transformation from beginning to end is a beautiful thing to witness. I feel very honored to assist in that way.
Speaking of the beginning, I remember you said you spontaneously started getting into channeling. Was it around 2008, 2009? What a specific moment that activated that?
Well, I'm going to try to condense that story down. So a few months before this happened to me, I literally know where I was at when I put the thought out, I want to help people, and I want them to come to me, and I want to show them how they can know what they need to know. I mean, it was just kind of a real random thought in the middle of driving home from Target to my house. It was just that. And a few months later, I had taken a class that is called spiritual response therapy. And it was teaching you how to use a pendulum on a bunch of different charts to clear out energy and clear out lifetimes and all this. And I was enjoying the class. So I was at home practicing using all these charts and trying to understand it. And all of a sudden I felt my dad next to me. My dad had taken his life about 20 years earlier. We were very close. He was an awesome guy, gosh. And I've had experiences with him in the dream state and in other ways since his passing, but this was just so intense. And I was just trying to think, like, what is this? And I was holding my pendulum and I knew my yes and no direction. So I just said, I kind of didn't want to get my hopes up at all. So I just said, is there somebody here in the room? And it's swaying very, very big yes. And I'm thinking, how do you communicate with this? And I'm looking through all these SRT charts, but that's not for communication. It's for something else. So there wasn't anything there for me. And I just thought, well, I could draw up a letter chart. And instantly I thought, oh no, I don't want it to be dark or, Ouija-like. And then I just settled back down and thought, no, just put your highest intention for the greatest good and probably nothing will happen, but just try it. And so I drew up this actually really crappy letter chart because I'm a really bad drawer, artist. But I got the letters around it and I put the pendulum over it and it began spelling out a message. And I'm like, what? How is this happening? Am I making it move this? But it was stuff I wasn't thinking. So, and it was just a real short message. It was like, this is it, ready to begin. We'll be able to measure something like the gateway to other consciousness begins soon. And I'm like, what in the heck was that? And I thought it was an anomaly and, just a weird thing. And I sat down again later and the first thing that spelled out, it said, hi, Zippy. And Zippy is my dad's nickname for me. And he's the only one that called me Zippy. And I felt like my heart just burst open. And it was just, again, a short message. And every time I sat down after that, there was a message. So eventually, it was mostly my friends and my family that were coming through at the time. They shared with me that I'd be teaching people how to do this. And I thought, well, that's awesome because I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm doing this. I don't know. It just seems to work. But over time, back and forth between both sides, this class developed. And it's still available to this day, and it's awesome. And people can connect in, to their loved ones, to God's source, angels, guides, ETs, high selves. I've talked to my animals, both that are here and that have passed. It's been an amazing journey. So that happened to me quite a few years before Dolores happened to me.
Was that through your technique you created, talk? Was it the Art of Universal Knowing?
Yes. Yeah. So it's called the Art of Universal Knowing, or the acronym is TAUK, which is talk. And it's just a teachable method of channeling. What I loved about it, similar to that little conversation I had on the way home from Target, was it's a way to show people that all answers are within them, that they don't need to go to outside sources or authority or be in confusion about their lives. And I think when I understood who Dolores was, that's what attracted me to her, because her process wasn't the practitioner healing anybody or giving them their answers. It was just helping them get deep enough where they could be their own source of knowledge. So in that way, both processes are similar.
Laura, do you have any questions before I go a little bit deeper?
Yeah, no, that's oh man, the way to heal is to just have that inner strength and empowerment within yourself. It's just really wonderful to listen to. I have not had a session yet, so it's kind of wild, right? So yeah, I guess my question is what is most interesting kind of breakthrough for you, like that you've witnessed, that kind of blew your mind kind of story? I don't know if it's with a client or just with yourself, if you're allowed to share, but where you got some real kind of answers to just, I don't know, things that might be like relevant in the world right now. Just, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the first thing that comes to mind as you say that, Laura, is if I go back to talk before I go to QHHT, that first message that came through, I didn't attribute it to my dad, or I don't know. I mean, I just didn't know what to think about it because it was just so unexpected. But then it was my dad that was coming through most of the time at the very beginning. And I just thought, oh my God, this is great. We've figured out a way to reconnect again. And it makes sense. My dad and I would have the most esoteric conversations before he left. And, my belief system at the time that he took his life was that I didn't believe in hell. And I just thought God's all loving and, he'll take care of them. But of course you always wonder, and people, they say some things that are so horrible about that situation. And so there's always a wondering and a heart hurt from that, of course. And so early in those messages, I asked my dad what it was like right after he left his body. And the first answer to that question, he said, well, I floated out of my body. I landed in a garden. I rested for a while. Then I talked with God about my life. And then I created my heaven, is how he worded it. And at that moment, that answer was good. My heart needed to hear. It was for him. And one of my girlfriends asked me a question to ask him a few weeks later about what is transition, I think was the exact question. And I didn't know where this was going to lead, but as soon as I was channeling a message with him, I said, she wants to know what is transition. And he says, well, let me tell you about mine. He says, obviously my dad had depression in order to take his life and thinking that's his option. And he says, so I didn't love myself at all when I left. And I felt I was a horrible person. And he says, so I know now I created a hell, and it was pretty bad. And that's the first place I went to. But I didn't last there long. And, I think I don't know. To me, it felt like it was a dad going, it's okay, honey. It was just a little bit. He goes, and then I asked to be with God. And he goes, it was like I was taken away just like that. And I landed in that garden. So the first story he tells me is a little, easier to digest. The second story, we get into a little bit more of what his creation experience was like in that. But it just, it was so heart healing to ask him questions about where he was at, what he was doing, what he thought about his life now that he sees it from a different perspective. And it was so great because it definitely felt like, and the words sounded like my dad, but just with this much wider perspective on things. And he's been a great teacher to me from that side.
Wow. That's really incredible.
I was actually really disheartened when you had mentioned in one of your videos on your channel that your father had passed, but I was actually really excited the moment you said that you had a nephew that looks exactly like him.
Oh, yes.
And
So
then you found out that it actually is an incarnation of your father.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So funny. Such a funny story. So I have this little nephew. He's not little anymore. He's grown up. But we have a lot of sisters. So I'm one of, my dad had 7 daughters. Um, and so the little one had a little boy. And as he was growing up, it was just uncanny how much he looked like our dad, and we'd hold pictures up, of our dad at that age. And it's like, oh my God, they're the same, it's amazing. And that sister was, how should I say this? She was interested in what I did, but she wasn't like really into spirituality or anything like that. But one day she had asked if she could have a QHHT session to heal some health issues. And so she decided that she wanted to ask about her son and the similarities between our father and him. And what she said, which was really interesting, because I don't know if at that time, at least, she had any belief in reincarnation or anything like that. It was just kind of I can't figure this out, so let's ask. And what she said in her QHHT session is, yes, that's our dad. Now, don't think of him as Ron, who he wasn't as our father. He's here on his own mission now, and he's his own different aspect. But he and my little sister still had things to finish. And so he decided to come back in as her little boy. Now, so I'm like, that's so interesting. So I go back home and I start channeling, and I get a connection with my dad. And I'm like, okay, I think I can understand that, but how can you be here and I can be communicating with you, channeling, and you can be my nephew at the same time? And it was like the most awesome analogy. And he says, well, honey, it's like an orange, many segments connected to the core. So I can be here and I can be him and I can be other places, and you can be here and you can be there. And there's many others versions of you in different places. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's awesome. I love that idea.
Yeah, Dolores Cannon. Laura, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, no, I'm here. You can hear me?
I think Dolores talks about that in the Convoluted Universe series in detail, about how we're here and there and we're parallel and we're everywhere all at once because time isn't linear and it's more cyclical, and we exist in all these realms simultaneously.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm doing a lot of stuff somewhere out there, and a lot of, actually, somebody under hypnosis had experienced things that I was doing, that they saw me, doing work or helping them to recover from things. And I mean, it's just amazing, like how much we extend our energies out in other dimensions and other locations. It's just incredible. This is just like, wow, fascinating. That Drago, what, any questions, man?
So Laura said she's never really had a QHHT session, so she's stoked to the idea of maybe me being the first one to put her under and
Yeah,
discover
go
all
for
kinds
it.
of amazing things about her.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. It really is.
Yeah. I'm like really blown away that it takes you that deep into, that kind of ability to connect to. I can't wait. I mean, I do you find that a lot of people want to and then they hesitate? It's like, they might cancel because it opens up so much, because I mean, I can't imagine some of the exchanges that I might have. I mean, I feel it intuitively. I feel connected to those that have crossed over in my heart, but to really like have a space held to have more direct connect. It's just
The cool thing about it, that, and I hope this helps, is those sessions are really guided by the part of you that loves you unconditionally. And so it shows you what's most important for you to know, to help you understand parts of your life perhaps more deeply. And it does it in the way that it knows that you can handle it. So that doesn't mean everybody's lifetime that they see is, unicorns and rainbows. It usually isn't at all, but it's presented in the way that helps you understand things and make sense of it. And it really takes away fear, I think, because when we can truly understand the root reason behind issues or our life or our health, then we can really understand it. It's the not knowing or the hemming and hawing between maybe it's this or maybe it's that really gets us into confusion, and that is worrisome and challenging for most people. So I think the clarity that people get when they do a QHHT session is, one of the many, many gifts that's possible.
Yeah, I think I've just come across people that just don't necessarily feel safe to have so much opened up to somebody, and
hopefully, I mean, what we hope for is that, that person is, there unconditionally for the person, and non-judgmental. And when I'm giving a session, I can't flow into their emotions and from their experiences. I don't do them service that way. So I'm more of an observer of their story, and just trying my very best to ask the very best questions on their behalf to get as much helpful information through for them. It really is a profound and beautiful experience. What I found, I've been doing this. I think today is actually my 11th year anniversary.
oh wow.
For doing.
Yes, has it been since like 2012 or something like that almost?
Yeah. On Facebook today, in the memories thing, I had a post up there that said, I'm just coming back from this QHHT class, with Dolores Cannon. And so I think today is the day.
Well, what an honor to be here for that moment to actually host this interview with you, man. That's pretty awesome.
That is,
thank you.
Yeah.
So going back to that fear about hypnosis, I get this question all the time about what people think hypnosis is. Can you tell people what hypnosis is and what it isn't, and address the issues of losing time and basically the feeling of paralysis where you have no control? That's the most common thing that I get.
Well, okay. So truly all hypnosis, if it's hypnosis for habits or if it's hypnosis for regression, hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So you're using a practitioner like you and I, Drago, to guide you using our voice and our words into this deep state of relaxation. It's really just deep relaxation. You're always in control. Nobody can control you in this way. It's the client is the one that decides how far and how deep they go with this. We can help them as much as we can if there's, they get into some worry and fear about what's happening. But they're 100% in control. They could stop at any time they want to. The really interesting thing is the experience itself has changed a lot in these years, 10 to 12 years, I would say. Before that, it would be way more common for people to have what we call amnesia experience. And they wouldn't fall asleep in the session, but to them, it almost felt like they did, because during the session, they really weren't feeling aware of what was happening. And after the session, they didn't have a lot of recall. So for decades, up until about 10 to 12 years ago, if you were doing a QHHT session, this is what it would have felt like to you. When I started in on it, there was just a little bit of a change starting to happen, and it's gone a 180 up to this point, where people started feeling somewhat more aware in the sessions. So that can mean like maybe you're still aware that you're in my office or you hear some traffic noise outside. But when I'm asking you questions about this other lifetime you're in, or these questions that you want answered, you can focus deeply in on that place or that answer and give that information, even though you're still aware what's going on. It's quite an interesting phenomena. And that's one of the things that I love to do. I love to talk to the high self. I'm just so curious. I want to know everything. And so in my years of doing this, I've asked many times, why are they feeling more aware in the sessions? Because honestly, that's a little more challenging for the practitioner and for the client. When they had amnesia, it's kind of like their left brain, their analytical mind went down the hall around the corner and sat in a big comfy chair for a couple of hours and never interfered. When people are feeling more aware as they are now, that left brain can kind of be giving backseat commentary throughout, which can be a little challenging. They may have the thoughts, I think I'm making this up. I don't think I'm really under. I don't think I'm relaxed enough. And those unhelpful thoughts take you away from this right side of your brain that has all this great information. So nowadays, in sessions, I talk with my clients quite a bit about, expect that this will happen. It's okay. And here's how you manage that left side so we can really spend as much time as possible over on this amazing right side that has all knowledge on it for you. What the high self say or subconscious says in clients' sessions about this is it's part of our evolution that we're learning to be like a high self in an awake and aware physical body. And that amnesia state was designed actually to override what I call the controllers, those that had been, holding the puppet strings. So back in that time of amnesia, and for eons before that, humanity had agreed to the belief that if you're making it up, it isn't real. If you're making it up, it isn't real. But our creativity and our imagination are the two greatest gifts that we come into a life with. It's how we create our life. And if we believe we're making it up and we believe it isn't real, then we devalue that imagination, that creativity, our greatest gifts. And if we do that, then we're in confusion and we rely upon authority to solve our problems for us. That's how we're controllable. So what the high self say is back in the time, for example, in QHHT, when people were having amnesia, it was to override that belief at that time that if we're making it up, it isn't real. We make stuff up from the right side of our brain. That's where creativity and imagination are. It's always real. To different varying degrees. But if they had a session back in, 1990, and they had the amnesia experience and they were just starting to wake up and wonder about, gosh, could I have had another lifetime, or why do I really like this person, or why do I feel drawn to this part of the world? They would have their session, they would get a recording of the session, and although they didn't remember anything of it, they would hear themselves saying all this information and they would think, oh my gosh, I couldn't have made that up because I don't remember any of it. It was so smart. So it's kind of like the high selves one up the controllers there, take that, bad guys. But what they say is we weren't meant to stay in that state of amnesia. That was to get the ball rolling, to get us trusting that we hold all this knowledge within us. And what they're preparing us for is what they call like full realization. It's like being your high self in awake and aware physical body. Anytime any one of us could just, quiet ourselves down, ask a question, and that knowledge that so easily comes through in a QHHT session is always there because that part of you is always with you. It's just we're not trained about it. We don't learn about it. We don't know how to access it or to trust it. We call it epiphanies, aha, our gut, our intuition, and we belittle it so much. So now we're at this point where we're feeling aware in the sessions because the high self say we have to know what it feels like to be in that relaxed state, to trust that flow of knowledge coming through and being voiced, so that you can tap into that anytime. So we're in a really remarkable time of being able to have that information at our fingertips anytime we need.
Yeah.
That's a long answer. Sorry.
No, that's great. really profound.
So going from the talk method of channeling, how did you actually originally discover Dolores? How did she get put into your life?
I saw her being interviewed, and at the time, I think she was talking about ETs. And back then, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, not quite there yet, but interesting. But the thing that attracted me to Dolores at that time was she looked just like my grandma who had passed. I'm like, oh, it's just like watching my grandma. She's talking about these really wild topics, but she's so trustworthy because she looks like your grandma. And so I kind of put her away for about a year. And then I happened to see her on another interview, and she was talking about Convoluted Universe Book 4, I think, or 3, probably 3 at the time. And that just hooked me. I'm like, that's fascinating. I want more of that. And so, like a lot of people at that time, I called down to her office in Arkansas, and I got on her list to have a session with her. And then I realized that she taught it, and I had never had thought about learning hypnosis before, but I signed up for the very next class, and away I went. Never looked back.
And then it was full steam to becoming a teacher. What was it like to be sitting in the back of the classroom watching the most famous hypnosis teacher in the world talk?
Well, oh my gosh, I feel really super blessed. I started assisting her quite quickly, and that afforded me the opportunity to just sit and listen to her over and over and over again. And I'm like Pavlov's dog. The more I hear the same thing, the better I understand it. And so that was a gift to be able to sit within her class. And the extra fun part was I had some more private time with her, and I could ask her questions about her books and, what were you thinking, when your client did this? And she just had this amazing mind, and she could just pull it right out and say, okay, during that session, here's what was really going down, and here's what I was thinking. And, she was funny. She had a great sense of humor. In class, she was kind of like, let's, pay attention. That in private, she had just the sweetest hearts, and so humble and very generous.
So what's your favorite Dolores memory?
Oh God.
I know that didn't she come to your office in Des Moines once?
Yes.
And I remember she was freaking out because she saw your name on your window. And she's like,
Yeah.
I never even put my name on my window. And she thought she was so excited about that.
Yeah, she did it. She at the time she wanted to build a physical metaphysical university in Arkansas, and she had met my husband, who's a general contractor, and they got along well. I think he reminded her of her husband Johnny because they had similar hobby interests, and so she wanted to build this university, and she said she wanted Kevin to build it. And I'm like, we're in Iowa, you're in Arkansas. And he says he loved her, and he's like, I'll build it for her. It's okay. So she was coming up to see the architect's renderings for the first time of her university that she had dreamt about for so long. And I wanted to show her my office. And so we pulled up, and Suzanne Spooner, QHHT, is on the window. And she just literally looked baffled. And she's like, you've got your name up on the window? And I'm like, of course, Dolores, everybody has to know where I am. And she says, yeah. She goes, in Huntsville, little teeny tiny town, nobody knows what I do. And I said, Dolores, everybody in Huntsville knows what you do. She just thought she was just so anonymous, but she's world famous.
Oh, that's so wild. Oh my goodness.
I loved her. Oh, what a great soul.
And they have really awesome parties at the reunions. The last time I seen you, Susan, was I think Orlando last year. Not Orlando, Daytona. I seen you in Daytona. And I remember on Saturday, it was dressed as your favorite past life persona. Everybody dressed up. Everybody was like, people were Egyptians. People were princesses.
Oh,
I think it was Cinderella. Dude, Susan, do you remember what I came as?
Yes, you were very intense. It was like, it was a lot of theater. I'm trying to remember. It was it wasn't a dragon, was it? No, you were like a fighter,
yeah, it's super soldier.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I remember coming up to you and I said, I wore this outfit just for you. And you're like,
Oh.
you looked at me confused. You're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I noticed that you started jumping in the secret space program and started interviewing super soldiers. And that's kind of what my purview has been like the last 10 years studying this phenomenon. And getting into QHHT, I've done an abnormal amount of people in these programs. And when I see you interviewing them, I was so excited because a lot of the level 3 teachers, a lot of them don't interview a lot of people in the secret space program. So when I see you jumped in that realm, I was so freaking excited. And you guys actually gave me the Spirit Award for that show. And it's this big flag. Actually, it's right here. It's like a big old flag for Spirit Award. What exactly is the Spirit Award of that reunion?
Yeah, we have so many great practitioners, but there's the people that are really fired up and wanting to help others on their mission. It's nice to be recognized, I think. And everybody could get a Spirit Award, but it's such big work, especially when you're dealing with SSP and people that, it doesn't have to be SSP to have a lot of trauma and healing to do in your life, of course. But that's what we do a lot of work with that. We never, as far as my clients, I don't know for the most part, what they're walking in with, what they want to heal, what's been going on in their life until they're with me in my office. And full focus, which I'm sure with you, Drago, is the same as, getting the highest and best healing and information for the client to help them move forward in their best way. And, it doesn't matter, some people have had, on a scale of trauma, maybe less than others, but even to the ones that have had less, to them, it's a lot, so you can't really judge a person by a scale. I've known some people that have made it through horrific things, and they have a very, loving, light expression of, they don't hold it. And so everybody's so unique and different. And I think your spirit was just big and noticed, and I think it deserved the recognition.
Thank you. When I go to these events, man, I actually recently, because of that event and that costume, I kind of made that my trademark at events. So I actually started wearing that at events. I just wore it at Contact in the Desert, and it freaking blew people away, man. Just to walk through a crowd of so many people and just to be in a costume like that. People, when they see you, they just they freak out and they step back. They're like, oh my God. And that costume got me into so many awesome conversations, man. It was a really good time. So I would like to do another reunion and dress like that again, because it's like I always meet my soul family every time I go. People from other lives, future networking, people I'm supposed to work with in the future. It's like nothing's a coincidence.
Yeah, it's a very open-hearted and open-minded group, for sure.
So I see that you were recently at the Journey to Truth conference, and you were unveiling your information with Mark Demizio, was it? The secret space program asset. What did you discover through all that?
Well, Mark came to me as a client several years ago, and it was just kind of, he had some missing time. He wanted some understanding about that. He had had horrific nightmares throughout his life, had dependency on drugs throughout different times in his life, didn't understand that. But everything kind of came down to this missing time, life before the missing time and life after the missing time. So we did a session, and he got some information. At that time, I thought that was, that's all we were going to do is this one session. And it was about being in the secret space program and missing time, like a 20 and back. And but maybe it was a year later, he had kind of processed that information that he gave himself in that session, and he wanted to do it again, see if he could get more information. And really what happened in the second session was it was a lot more information. I mean, I kind of thought we hit it all in that first session, and we really had just started peeling back the first couple layers of it. So I think we've done 4 sessions together, and it's been, quite a journey for him and a learning experience for me, becoming friends with him and understanding more deeply what he's been through and how he's healing. And he's just one of the strongest people I know. I think he's an amazing human being.
Wow.
I see he also talks about clones a lot, and REM consciousness transfer between soldiers and bodies and stuff. And like a lot of these people in SSP programs, they all say that they all fight in all these different existences and different planets, and they use these avatar bodies, these clones. So when they die in theater, their consciousness homes back to the source, not God source, but almost like the GPS of the original body. And these people talk about how they even take their consciousness while they're awake, and it's a separate altar that powers these clones. And like, that's crazy. And like, you start to figure out that they've been talking about this clone stuff ever since the Sumerian tablets. Like, you have the Emerald Tablets of Thoth that talks about how they basically made all these clone bodies in order to transfer their consciousness life after life, because the Sumerian tablets claim that the planet they came from suffered from nuclear war, and it made their males sterile, specifically the Anunnaki. And that's a good segue into Egypt. I see you just got back from Egypt, so it'd be cool to talk about that in a minute. But it's interesting to see the correlation between all the SSP programs and the Anunnaki in general, because you see that a lot of these programs were already going on and being talked about in the Sumerian tablets. So I always found that amazing, that connection.
Oh, there is so much to history that we have not been told, that's, been held back. And that's one of the kind of the cool things about QHHT is when we're tapping into these other lifetimes and the higher consciousness, we're getting the real knowledge, the real history of what happened. And it very much does not match up to what we've been taught, to believe. So it's like stepping back in time and getting a clear, wider perspective of a human experience and a galactic cosmic experience, how it all ties into there. And I think we're just truly scratching the surface of our understanding of that.
So speaking of your understanding and this whole convoluted universe, what have you learned about all this? Doing this for like this many years, you've had to explore so many different realms that even a regular QHHT practitioner hasn't even hit yet, because you've done so many sessions. Like, how many sessions have you done so far?
I wish I would have counted. A couple thousand, probably, at least by now.
That's a lot. Like, I'm about to hit 500. And that's actually a lot for your average QHHT practitioner. And I've gained a pretty good name in this field, and I started like doing these events, and I meet all these people in the programs and people who's been abducted. So I literally will interview them in number at all these shows. So some of these shows, I'll interview 5 or 6 people with sessions. I'll actually perform sessions on this many people. And that's a lot. Like, what it's like to go to these shows, and there's not much time. Like, you have to hang out with your other QHHT people, and there's other things to do, but it sucks to really spend all that time during these shows to really do that. But I feel that's what I'm here to do. Like, we're only here in the blink of an eye. Like, compared to these other ET beings, we have the lifespan of like a gnat. We blink in and out of existence. So I feel that I'm really trying to utilize every single moment I have here and be in the moment and really make it worthwhile, because when I die and pass, I want to know that I wasn't lazy and I actually surpassed all of my own limitations and perceived obstacles, and know that I made a difference.
Yeah, well,
it's a lot to have to do that.
Have that awareness is amazing. And I think everybody's just trying the best that they can do for what they know at the time. My very last client that I did last week she had so much of what you're talking about kind of all wrapped up together. She she had an experience where she and her boyfriend woke up one morning and they both were very, very sore, like in the midsection of their body. And she had some memory of possibly being abducted, but she didn't have, understanding about it. And she wanted to know what that was about. And sure enough, when we asked about it, she's been abducted a lot throughout her life. And it was an agreement they said that she made as a soul before she came into this life. And that soreness was actually some healing that they had done on her body for her. So yeah, there's so many layers and aspects of us that it's hard to wrap a head around. And I think that's one thing, I'm always a student. So I'm always trying to gain knowledge, through my sessions or through Laura or through you, Draco, or through others that are, your focus may be in other places to, what are you guys getting to help me understand what I'm getting a little bit better. And it's just like this really cool jigsaw puzzle, right? And there's so many people here on the planet right now trying to help one another and raise our awareness and knowing up that we're so much more than what we've been told we are. And it's kind of exciting, actually.
Yeah. You learn so much about everything in the larger picture through these people. And at the same time, do you find yourself, what is the technique that you guys use when some of the beings or some of their experiences might be starting to interface with you because you're working with that particular client? Do you ever find that you get sort of pulled in or you're interfacing with any of the energies?
Yeah,
you kind of like
it's fun. It's just that, I have an innate knowing, this is just for me. I have an innate knowing that I'm always protected. I never worry about, anything malicious in any way coming in that would, hurt me at all. I'm solid. I'm good with this. That same client was, while she was still under towards the end of her session, she says, man, she goes, this room is really full. And that I've had several clients while they're under say, oh, yeah, there's so many people. This is like an auditorium. There's so many people here. And I'm like, yeah, come in, I don't know what you guys want to see from this, but enjoy. And she says, I think she said your spirit guides are here. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't ever want to talk about myself during somebody's session. It's their session. She brought it up and I tried to like get off of it. And she's like, no, they're here to protect you. And I'm like, okay, that's, awesome. Maybe it's them, but I have no worries about anything negative at all. And if something like that is brought up with them, then, then we discuss and try to get to the root of that situation. And it's really interesting. It's usually a fear that they hold that is creating that issues when we really get down to the nitty-gritty of it. And that's an amazing transformation to see somebody let that go, and it's been holding them down or it's been holding them back, and to let that go, it's an amazing thing to see somebody work their selves through. It's like being a new person afterwards.
Yeah, gosh.
And then performing these QHHT sessions is very powerful. And like every time I do one, I always get emotional on the inside because I always stay detached. But what I mean by emotional is I've got to send people to the day of their death every single time. And that's not the hard part. The hard part I always have a problem with is when I tell them they have to take their last breath in. Because at that point, I'm there with them at their death and whatever they're experiencing them, and I'm with them in that moment. And to see people go through that, it's very powerful. And it's hard to stay disconnected from something like that because I've technically died twice, come back twice. And to take someone to that realm voluntarily and to have been there and came back, it's a kind of an emotional thing. Like once you've experienced a near-death experience and stepped out of your body, it's like, it's not like anything you can ever explain. So to be with them in that moment and to metaphorically take their hand while they're leaving their body. It's a really huge honor. But the funny thing is, like, all these sessions are recorded, and sometimes right before I say I'm about to tell someone to take their last breath in, sometimes it takes me a minute, because it's like you're about to experience your death and it's about to happen. So it takes me a minute to prepare for it, because emotionally I'm always there. You know, like, I feel bad for them that they have to experience all this trauma and pain, but I know that they're about to experience something truly amazing once they step out of their body.
That's it. I remember one lady I had years ago, her greatest fear in life was dying. And when I can't remember what her lifetime was that she went to, but not in a current life do we ever take them to the day of the death, but in these what we consider past lives, we do, because we want to get the whole story of that life. And so she got to the last day of that life, and she's describing what's going on and why it's going to be the last day. And I said, okay, we're done with that. You've left the body. What is it like for you? And she goes, oh my gosh. She goes, that was so easy. And it didn't hurt at all. And my body feels so much better. I feel so great. And she goes, it's just like getting off of this table and moving over to that chair. It's so easy. I'm like, there's nothing to be afraid of. I'm like, oh, that was just that little tiny portion, alleviated a lifelong fear for her. And I think that is where we, it's in a human life, we get really, because how life is, we get really tunneled into what this day is like and what this annoyance is and what this challenge is and all that. But I think one of the great gifts of the work that we do is we get this nice broad picture, that this is such a temporary situation, and make the best of it and do your best and try to help others. And, but then, this other part of you is there, and, sometimes the high selves will get into these deep talks about, it's a simulation. Physicality isn't real, it's like, it can boggle the mind, of all these, probabilities, I would say. But again, it makes you realize that you're much more than what you think you are.
Yeah. And that's the big awakening. We are so much more than we can imagine, multidimensional, and just, gosh, there's so many layers to uncover. And it's really incredible to meet you and hear all of this. It's just, this is like, gosh, where do you see just this for you in the future? Just where our future generations are being very targeted and very indoctrinated and very, do you see this being more available to like help those that are just really struggling with what the darker agendas are attempting to do to their, this can really help people to overcome all the confusion and the transgender confusion and the just how this indoctrination and all the psyops and social engineering is like really trying to take our children out of their own sovereign experience to find themselves. It's like there's so much being put upon them. Do you find that you have these kind of clients, or what could this sort of technique do for those that are sort of under that trance or spell of something like social engineering? And
I think,
in the future,
I think our generation is probably, I'm hopeful. What I see is our generation is the one that has to wake up the fastest, to what's happened and what we've been under. I think the next generation, they're very special, and I think they're very strong souls. And, I think everybody's coming in at the time that they were supposed to for the events that needed to be brought to the open. The little ones that I'm around, I've got some grandkids and others that I'm around, are very clear-eyed and very knowing of their their selves. So that gives me hope. I don't think they'll fall underneath the spell as much as what we did, and much, much less than what our parents did, and, you know, going back in generations. So I am hopeful. You know, I quander this a lot. You know, it's what we focus on, is that what we experience, we're creating it. You know, this weekend I was like, I kind of, you know, there's just a lot being thrown at all of us right now. And, you know, I kind of had to like step myself back and say, all right, let's just focus on things that make me happy, you know, and not go down the rabbit holes of everything that pops up, just to kind of get my grounding back again. And, you know, in sessions, probably the number one piece of advice that is given in sessions from the high selves is meditate. And I think that's where we can quiet all that junk that's being thrown at us, from all sides, and connect into that part of us that wants to support us and help us and understand, and help us through this great awakening. And that's probably the very best thing we can do: be outside in nature, and, you know, be with your animals and your people and your tribe, and try to let go of things that get you totally and utterly stressed out. You know, I think going forward, I mean, I think that's my gig, is I want to help people find their answers. And, you know, if it's like going to Egypt, which is an amazing experience, you know, that the focus on that Egypt trip was to help people remember their past lifetimes, or to connect into the collective consciousness, to receive the true deeper knowledge that is there. It's, you know, so multi-layered. And I think when you're on a trip like that, it helps, again, put into perspective how deep and profound each one of us are. And I think for the most part, humans want to help and be of service. And, you know, we're just in this interesting time where we can really, really clearly see who isn't.
Right.
And, but that's a gift. That's a gift, is that we're not asleep anymore.
That's right.
Laura, you had mentioned programming and fear, and using this technique to basically put people under, discover the origination of all the programming and fears and stuff like that. And one session that stands out to me a lot was about a year ago. And typically with QHHT, we don't take people to the day of their death in this life. It's usually parallel lives, past lives, stuff like that. But I had a client that was stage 4 cancer, brain cancer, and they gave her like 3 months to live. And she was in so much physical pain that she wanted to kill herself. And she told me that if I didn't help her, that she had a gun and she would kill herself in her car if I couldn't help her. So I remember this was the first time I ever thought about taking someone to the day of their death in this life. And she had so much fear about what death actually was. And I remember taking her to the day of her death, and apparently it was only 5 months from this exact moment. And she was shown what it was like to step out of her body and be free from the pain and the trauma, and have these things explained before she dies why it all happened. And like, that was one of the most profound moments of my life, because I knew she was serious, because this woman had flown from like Seattle, and we had talked for like 6 months. And she had just got the funds together to make all this trip happen, because typically I don't fly out to clients. They usually fly in for me. And I always felt guilty long term that I never tried to make it happen sooner to really truly help her, you know, because like, talking for that long when someone's suffering so much, it really sucks to not be able to have the finances to really make QHHT something big and really help people, because it involves a lot of money to travel. But I remember showing her what happened after she died. And after that session was over, her fear was completely gone. And she had wrote me right before she died and told me that it changed her life, and that she actually got to live life for the first time.
That's awesome.
Incredible.
Wow.
Gosh, I mean, it must be just so amazing to just feel into the amount of lives that, you've changed, and just what an impact that has. Because do you find that they bring in other people, and they go home and start to tell their friends and family, and then other people start to come in? Or is it, I mean, I guess it's a mixed bag, I'm sure, but I mean, I'm sure everybody around them sees the results and sees the changes when they.
I would think so. I mean, I think, there definitely would be a chain reaction to some degree. Some people, it's so funny, as people are waking up, they're at different places. And, I've literally had, this was somebody local, and they said, oh, she told me where she worked, and she said, if my boss knew I was here, like, he'd probably fire me. And what I couldn't tell her was that, well, her boss had been in for a session, like, several months before. He's totally into this, but I think sometimes they keep this stuff close to the vest because they're worried about what other people think of them. But I think many are open to these possibilities, and almost everybody's had a weird experience that they can't explain, that
Right.
is outside more of a supernatural thing, and maybe they don't share that, but I hope it does. I think, especially those that have healed themselves physically, it's such a noticeable change. I was in Hawaii recently giving a session, and the gentleman had problems with his feet, swelling in his feet, and the joints of the knees. He was thinking about getting knees replaced, but he didn't want to do that. And he had a session, and he and I were taking a walk from lunch up the beach. And there's a sand dune, and he's like, I'm going to try this. And he ran up the sand dune, and he's like, oh my God, I haven't done this forever. And his wife works in a hospital, and he goes to visit her and to bring her lunch. And he has to put surgical somethings on his feet. They're like flip-flops. And he says, my feet have been so swollen, I haven't been able to wear them. And he says, I stopped in the other day, and my feet just glided right in because they weren't swollen anymore. So, his wife isn't into any of this. She's very, medical minded in the old way. And I said, what does she think about this? I mean, does she notice that you're moving better and your feet aren't swollen? And he laughed, and he says, yeah, she can't figure that out. I said, well, maybe you should tell her that you had a session. And he goes, I think that'll blow her mind. I don't think she's ready for that, but who knows? Maybe she is.
Right. Wow. So I know it's probably time to wrap it up, but anything that we haven't asked you or talked about that you want to share before we close?
No, you guys are awesome. Your questions are great. Yeah, I would just, I would probably just close on reminding people that they have all the power within them to find their answers and to heal themselves. Dolores talked a lot about how our symptoms are really messages. And when you can understand the language of the body, you can figure out what the messages are. They're always trying to help us make changes in our life that will be more beneficial to us. And it's so easy to heal ourselves when we understand that philosophy and not pop the pills, and which create more symptoms and more problems. So just that all of our knowledge is within us. It always has been. And to dive into understanding that so that you can be of service to yourself, and then service to others, and help everybody elevate during this great awakening.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. Really wonderful to meet you, Suzanne. And so you have a website, and you just take clients? And
I do. My website is SuzanneSpooner.com. There's you can book a QHHT session. It's booked out a ways, I think, to about the end of 2026, but they're there.
wow.
You can take take the talk class. It's very, very, very inexpensive. If you want to learn how to channel, I have a free guided meditation to help people reach their high self so they can do that very thing of getting their own answers. And then within the next week or so, my friend Sarah Breskman-Cosme and I, who do the tours through Egypt, are launching a website just for the next tours. It's going to be called ancientlifetimes.com. And there people can sign up for that. And we've got a workshop coming up in January in Jupiter, Florida. So
Nice.
either website you'll find all the information there.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. Any final words, Drago?
Suzanne, I'm going to be launching a standalone show soon, and I would love to interview you and really do a deep dive into QHHT. I have so many questions. I have literally thousands, and I feel that we could just dovetail off of each other's information just nonstop.
I would love to. Awesome.
All right, as we conclude this captivating episode of the Rebel Collective, I'm filled with immense gratitude for our exceptional guest, Suzanne Spooner. Her presence on the show has been nothing short of an awe-inspiring, leaving us with a profound sense of wonder and enlightenment. I just want to thank you for being here with us in this moment and being that, was it 10-year anniversary doing QHHT? Like, this is the day. That's pretty awesome.
That is really awesome.
I just really want to leave it with that. It was just an honor.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to sit with you both. And thank you for all the wonderful work that you're doing. You're changing lives all the time. And it's a good time to be on the planet doing this good work.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.